Imagine a world where your opportunities, quality of life, and future are determined by where you're born. In some parts of the world, countries enjoy immense wealth, technological advancements, and global influence, while others remain mired in poverty, struggling with basic necessities. This divide is not just geographical, it's economic, political, and social. Today, we're diving into the global North and global South, a division that has shaped history and continues to impact millions today. But what if I told you this divide can be bridged? Stick around, because we're going to uncover how it happened, its impacts, and what we can do to bring these two worlds together for a more equal and sustainable future. The roots of the global North and South divide stretch back centuries, to the age of colonialism. European powers colonized much of Africa, Asia, and the Americas, extracting resources and exploiting local populations. The wealth from these colonies fueled the rise of industrialized nations in the North, while the colonies were left with weakened economies and shattered social structures. The legacy of colonialism still impacts the economies of many global South nations today, creating a cycle of dependency and inequality. While the North was transforming through industrialization, rapidly advancing in technology, infrastructure, and economic power, the global South remained largely agrarian. This industrial boom in the North was built on the backs of raw materials extracted from the South. The North's wealth was not just a product of hard work, but of unequal trade systems that favored industrialized countries, leaving the South behind. Fast forward to today, and the economic divide between the North and South is glaring. In 2020, the average GDP per capita in the global North was over $50,000, compared to just around $5,000 in many parts of the South. Wealthier nations control over 80% of global wealth, while poorer nations, home to billions of people, struggle with poverty, high unemployment, and underdeveloped infrastructure. The economic system that has allowed the North to thrive continues to disadvantage the South, creating an ever-growing gap. Technology has driven much of the progress in the North. Silicon Valley, for instance, is the epicenter of global innovation, creating companies that are transforming the world. But in the South, access to technology remains limited. Rural areas often lack basic internet access, while urban centers are fighting for the resources to adopt new technologies. This technological gap further perpetuates economic inequality, as the South is left without the tools to develop at the same pace. Perhaps one of the most stark examples of the North-South divide today is climate change. The countries of the global North have been the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, yet it is the South that suffers the most from its impacts. Flooding, droughts, and extreme weather events plague nations that are least equipped to handle them. The global South is on the front lines of climate change, and without global solidarity, the effects will only worsen. The divide also manifests in global politics. The South often finds itself underrepresented in international decision-making bodies like the UN and the IMF. Voting power remains concentrated in the hands of the global North, and this often leads to policies that favor wealthy nations while neglecting the needs of the South. For example, during climate negotiations, the South frequently calls for stronger action on emissions, but the North hesitates due to economic concerns. The global South's desire for more equitable representation continues to challenge global governance structures. Multilateral organizations, such as the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, were designed to promote cooperation and development. However, these institutions have often been criticized for favoring the interests of the global North. Policies like structural adjustment programs, SAPs, have imposed austerity measures on countries in the South, deepening their economic crises. Reforms are needed to make these organizations more equitable, allowing the South to have a greater voice in global decision-making. Geopolitical tensions often create friction between the global North and South, especially when it comes to international treaties and global policies. Countries in the South often form voting blocs to push for more fair and just global policies. These blocs challenge the North's power and highlight the need for reform in global governance. While the North and South are often seen as distinct entities, there are significant disparities within both. Cities in the global North, such as New York and London, have extreme levels of poverty and inequality, with wealth concentrated in the hands of a few. Similarly, many countries in the South have growing elite classes, while the majority of people remain poor. Addressing internal inequality is just as important as bridging the global divide. In recent years, nations in the global South have begun to work together through alliances like BRICS and the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. These efforts promote South-South cooperation, which reduces reliance on the global North and creates new pathways for growth and development. By sharing resources, technology, and knowledge, these countries are beginning to challenge the traditional economic power structures. For real change, global governance needs a major overhaul. Institutions like the UN, the IMF, and the World Bank need to become more inclusive. Giving the Global South a stronger voice and implementing policies that prioritize development and equity could be key to bridging the divide. The Global North has a dominant cultural influence, often shaping narratives about the Global South. This leads to stereotypes that perpetuate inequality. By amplifying the voices and stories of people from the South, we can begin to reshape global perceptions and promote a more accurate, nuanced understanding of these regions. One of the most promising areas for bridging the divide is through youth movements and grassroots initiatives. From climate change protests to local development projects, young people in the Global South are demanding better futures for themselves and their communities. These movements challenge the status quo and offer new solutions to long-standing problems. Global challenges such as pandemics, climate change, and migration affect everyone. These challenges remind us that the North and South are interconnected. Only by working together can we hope to address these crises and create a sustainable, equitable future for all. Aid needs to shift from charity to partnership. Instead of giving aid as a form of relief, we must focus on sustainable development that empowers local communities. Reimagining aid in this way will help break the cycle of dependency and lead to a more prosperous future for all. As the world becomes more multipolar, the old North-South divide is slowly giving way to a more balanced global order. Nations in the Global South are gaining power and influence, challenging the dominance of the Global North. This shift in power offers hope for a more equal global future. To bridge the divide, we need sustainable development frameworks that focus on education, infrastructure, technology, and environmental protection. The Global South must have access to the tools and resources it needs to thrive. Debt relief and fair trade initiatives can help level the playing field. Reducing the financial burden on the South and ensuring fair trade practices can provide the foundation for a more balanced global economy. Climate change offers a unique opportunity for global cooperation. The North must take responsibility for its historical emissions, while the South must be supported in its efforts to adapt and build a sustainable future. The divide between the Global North and South has shaped much of our world's history. But by working together, we can break down these barriers and create a future of equality, sustainability, and opportunity. It's time for global solidarity, for fair partnerships, and for a new chapter in global cooperation. What can you do to help? Share this video, start the conversation, and advocate for a fairer world. Together, we can bridge the divide.